Hi guys, my name's Sophie and this is Books and Things, and today I am going to be doing a review of The Rook by Daniel O'Malley. So this book starts out with a woman waking up in a park with no memory of who she is, surrounded by a circle of dead bodies. And she doesn't know who she is, she can't remember anything, and she finds in her pocket a letter addressed to her from a woman called Mythony, and the letter is signed off me. So this book was really good. I really liked it. I found it really interesting. I thought the characters were really well developed. I thought the tension was really good all the way throughout. I didn't ever think that the plotline was too obvious or bits of the story were too obvious. I thought it was all at the right level of suspense, and it was one of those books where I was intrigued all the way through, which I really liked. There were a couple of things that I found a little bit annoying, but they weren't to do with the story so much as to do with the writing. So there's a point where they describe a character as like asexual, and I really don't think that's what he meant to describe them as, because asexual is sexuality, not an appearance, which I think what they meant was that they looked as if they had no interest in sex, as opposed to the person next to them who looked really sexy, which I don't know how you would describe that, but using the term asexual is probably not the best way. The other thing that I found really annoying, and is a thing that I find annoying constantly, is that this book is set in England. It's specifically set in England, in Britain, like in the UK, whatever you want to call it. It happens mainly in London. British people, English people, anyone who speaks and writes in English in England and Britain spells colour with a U. That's how it works. You spell colour with a U. And no one really takes aspirin here, because you take paracetamol here, or an ibuprofen. Like, no one uses aspirin, really. Like, it's hardly ever used here, because it's not very good for you. And just kind of that kind of thing. Obviously, this guy who wrote it wasn't British or English, he's Australian, and I kind of looked that up because as I was reading it, I was like, is this person American? Do they not understand? Because I will happily read a book written by an American author set in America, and the colour will be spelt without a U, and favourite will be spelt without a U, and like, that doesn't bother me because the characters would spell that way. All of the characters in this book were English and would write things the way that it's written in England. And I realise it's a really petty thing, but it really grates on me when it happens. And I found it really irritating. And again, the aspirin thing, like no one really takes aspirin here, and it's one of those things that like you wouldn't necessarily be able to know that unless you kind of talked to some people who were English or lived here or something, but like it's not that difficult to find out, so could you try and spell things correctly, please? But like the plot of the book, like everything else was great. I really enjoyed it. My pet peeves are just about like grammar and spelling. But yeah, so I'm going to do a spoiled section now. So if you haven't read this book, which I strongly recommend that you do, it was amazing, I would go away now, read the book, come back, and we can talk about how amazing this book is. So, bye, non-spoil you people. So for those of you that have read this book, which I'm thinking is probably only like one person, and you'd be the person that sent me this book, I really liked this book. I thought it was great. I thought the characters were really interesting. I thought the powers that everyone had were so cool, like unusual powers as well. Like they weren't just like flying or becoming invisible or super strength or anything. They were like really fucking weird. like, oh god, what was the other Rook's name? Gestalt, okay. So Gestalt was so weird, like really scary, really creepy, like not in an obvious way, but just in a like, they're all one person. That's really strange. I was really worried that the American woman, Shanae, Shantae, I can't remember her name. So yeah, so when so when the American kind of Rook, who's not a Rook, she's something else, when Shantae arrived, I was like, I was, every time a new character was introduced, I was really tense that they were going to blow her cover, because I was just like, you can't get away with this for all of this book, you just can't, you just can't. So like Shantae arrived and I was like, oh shit, everything's gonna go down, I bet the American's betraying you, and then nothing came of that. And then we meet Bronwyn and I was like, she's not your real sister, she's gonna betray you, and then nothing came of that. And just kind of like all the way through the book, every time someone new was introduced, I was just like, it's them, I bet it's them, and then it wasn't them. Like the twists especially, like I really liked the twist with the baby, like it was really disturbing, but it was very interesting. So I'm very intrigued to read the next one when it comes out. But yeah, I thought it was great. I thought there were so many bits where I was just like, this is really interesting. I really liked the kind of almost dual perspective of all those letters that you were reading from Miffany before she lost her memory. And also, when I got to the end, when you read the last letter from Miffany, I was crying because I hadn't really realised until that point, but actually it's as if she died. And I was so upset because, like, she was a whole person. She was an entirely different person. They had different tastes. They had different personalities entirely. And she just died. Like her body didn't die, but she died. And then also to kind of, for also that is like, why were they so different? That was a really interesting thing for me. I was like, she's really very different, and kind of that her life is so, it's really weird to think that her life is really only a couple of weeks old, that she's not 30, she's like a few weeks old, which is, it's just like the relationship between those two people, even though they never met, was really beautiful. I thought, like, old Miffany handled it really well. Like, if someone told me that I was gonna forget everything about who I was, I think it would have freaked me out to write them letters and help them with their life. But she was just lovely. She was just lovely. At the beginning of the book, I didn't really like new Miffany, but then as I got to know her, I thought she was amazing. And just, oh, like the powers, again, the superpowers were so cool. So I genuinely cannot wait to read the next book. It was so interesting. So yeah, I gave this 5 stars, and everyone should read this book. So I will see you guys next time with another video.